Welcome back to Questing Beast. I'm Ben. Today we're taking a look at this copy I bought of The Weird That Befell Drigbolton, which is an adventure designed for old school role-playing games, especially Dungeons & Dragons, but could fairly easily be adapted for newer editions like 5th edition D&D or similar old school games. Now, this book is an adventure set in the mythic forest of Dolmenwood, which is a setting that I've talked about previously, both in individual reviews of that setting, which come in the form of zines, as well as in my video about top 5 settings that you may not have heard of. It's one of my favorite settings. It's this mythic forest full of a lot of dark and disturbing monsters, but also a lot of playfulness and whimsy, a lot of great writing and great art. However, so far the setting has come only in the form of zines that chronicle or describe different hexes within the forest, the types of monsters that are there, and so on. This is the first actual adventure designed for that setting. So it was written by Gavin Norman and Greg Gorgonmelk, and this is the hardback version. Now, one thing I should point out right away that this is a print-on-demand version, and for some reason the hardback version doesn't seem to work that well for me. What I'm talking about is that it's very, very stiff. It's less so than it was originally when I first got it in the mail, because I've sort of stretched it out and worked it for a while. But it's very difficult to open. It doesn't like to be open at all. It bounces back up very easily. So you really have to kind of hold it open with a reasonable amount of force in order to keep it open enough to read. For that reason, I might recommend looking at the paperback version if you were going to buy this, unless this issue has been fixed. It's not that big of a deal, but I think it is worth pointing out. As always, I'll put links down in the description below if you wanted to buy this for yourself. So let's look at what we have inside the adventure. So the basic premise of this is that it all takes place in one hex, one 6-mile hex within the forest of Dolmenwood. And the idea is that a star has fallen. The star Wormskin has fallen out of heaven and crashed somewhere in this hex, and its effects on the setting are very weird and make for some great adventuring. As with a lot of old school role-playing games, this is not a plot-focused type of game. Instead, it's more of an event-focused game. It presents a number of things that are going to happen in chronological order if no one interferes with anything. However, players being players, things are going to get pushed out of this official timeline very quickly, and the DM is going to have to adapt. So it starts out with a number of hooks, reasons why you might want to get the players involved. The main one of which is that the star, now that it's crashed, has dropped star metal all over this area, and star metal is worth a ton of money. So sheer financial gain could be a good motivation, but it gives you a couple other ones that are possible. There's a number of tones that you can take. So it takes a look at what could happen after the end of this adventure, depending on how it turns out. So the different tones that you can take include an apocalyptic outcome, a political way that the events could be spun, or a more whimsical way to look at it. I thought that was really interesting. I haven't seen a lot of books do that and really try and adapt their content for the tone and the type of campaign that you might be running. So here's our hex it's a 6-mile hex, like all of the hexes in Dolmenwood. It's on the northern fringe of the forest, and it has a number of keyed locations, each of which are detailed further on in the book. So one of the main places, of course, is the hamlet of Drigbolton down here. A tiny little hamlet fairly close to where the crater of the meteor has crashed. And the meteor is leaking out this strange gelatinous substance, which is fairly tasty and nutritious, and is being eaten up by everyone in the village, with repercussions that they do not yet realize. So the effects of consuming the star jelly. So there's several different sections throughout this book that look at basically a timeline of what's going to happen over the next week or so after the players arrive. We have some of the strange customs of the village, some important NPCs that you can find there. It's a very small village, so most of the important people are just chronicled right here, and they're all very distinct and full of characters, which makes them a lot easier to roleplay. We have a number of happenings that are going to be happening in this town in order. We have rumors and the talk of the town. So if you're running into people or simply eavesdropping in the tavern, you're going to have a lot of interesting things that you can give your players that can give them hooks and rumors that they can follow up on. Some of which are simply fun, and some of which actually do tie into other events going on within this adventure. We have what's going on at the crater. We have a lot of really great art here done by Andrew Walter, I believe. Yeah, Andrew Walter, the same artist who did the art for Fever Swamp and Crypts of Endormancy. I'm a big fan of his art. I think especially it works very well with Dolmenwood in that it feels a little bit cartoony, a little bit playful, but it's also able to capture a lot of the weirdness and darkness that you see in the Dolmenwood setting. What's going on at the crater? Again, a timeline of things that are going on. The Oath House, a major manor up in the north area of this hex, which has been infested with pieces of the fallen star that have broken up as it crash landed. And parts of the house are now infected and are being mutated in all sorts of horrifying and amusing ways. We have some great little drawings of what the NPCs look like. Details of all of the different rooms and all of the weird effects going on within them that players could possibly use to their advantage. And effects that are very easy to alter in tone. Like you can make a lot of these encounters a lot funnier or a lot more dangerous depending on the way that you played them. We have Knob Spinney, a little part of the Forest of Dolmenwood, where another fragment of the star has crashed and is mutating part of the forest to its own ends. We have Bolton Bog, where a weird alien entity, which is part of the star, has landed. A number of other locations, including a haunted statue that is being brought to life by another fragment of the star. And we have a section of random happenings. So this is really the engine of this adventure, in the sense that as you're wandering around, simply going from location to location isn't going to make the setting feel as alive. Whereas using these random tables is going to generate a lot of surprise and interest. So we have environmental effects that can show up. And we also have encounters, mundane encounters for the day. We have mundane encounters for the night. We have weird encounters for the day and weird encounters for the night, which are going to show up depending on the events and depending on how late into the adventure it is. Because the longer the adventure goes on, the more weird and corrupted the area becomes, and therefore the more weird encounters you're going to find. So again, it makes everything feel alive. And it's going to give you a ton of variety in terms of the things that you encounter and their disposition to you and so on. This is going to make things a lot more interesting for the dungeon master because they don't have to plan everything out. They can roll with the punches and just look at what is being rolled randomly and incorporate that into their understanding of what's going on in the background. And that is pretty much it. We have some information on finding star metal caches as well, which are going to be a major source of income, especially if you're running a experience points for gold system, with some information on further adventures that you can get. So all in all, I was very impressed with this. It was a really fun read. As with all of the Wormskin material, it is just an entertaining read. There are so many fun ideas that make you smile while you're reading it, and also light your brain up with ways that you could incorporate this into your campaign, even pieces of it. Like you could use those encounter tables for any sort of weird or corrupted or haunted part of your campaign setting, throw those encounters in there, and now it's a lot more interesting. So I'm strongly recommend the weird that befell Drigbolton. I'm definitely going to be running it at some point in the future. I'll probably be using a form of BX DnD or Labyrinth Lord, which is what it is designed for. But as I mentioned, it's easy to adapt it for pretty much any old school system. So that's my review. If you'd like to check this out for yourself, I'll put links down in the description where you can buy your own copy, either in PDF form or in hard copy. I'd like to thank especially my patrons over on Patreon for helping to support Questing Beast. Those guys are amazing, and they're really keeping this channel going. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys later.